Welcome to Oracle 12c Database Recovery. My name is Steve Hamilton, and I'll be your instructor for this course. Okay, let's get started. In this lesson, we will talk about user-managed complete recovery, user-managed incomplete recovery, as well as RMAN complete recovery and RMAN incomplete recovery. And at the end, there will be an overall quiz on database recovery. Okay, let's talk about our recovery options within an Oracle 12c database. Well, quite frankly, most of your recovery operations depend upon what type of mode the database is operating in. If the database is operating in archive log mode, we can completely recover the database to the last committed transaction, or we can incompletely recover the database to a specific point in time in the past. When we say RMAN can completely recover your database either hot or cold, well, that's true within user managed as well. However, what really makes that determination is if it's running in archive log mode. So assuming your database is running in archive log mode, it can be recovered either hot or cold. If the database is running in no archive log mode, regardless of the method that you're using, which is user managed or Oracle managed, you can only recover the database cold. So when we talk about RMAN for recoverability, there's really only 4 commands that you need to know, 2 of which are optional. If you choose to restore your data files to a completely different location on disk, so U01 is no longer valid, so you have to restore to U02, you would issue the set new name command. Now all this will occur within a little run block, so you'd say set new name. The set new name must come before the restore command. So set new name basically says set new name for U01 to U02 and then restore. So this is going to tell the restore command where to restore the files to. So by using RMAN and restore and set new name, all this is saying is for some reason the old location is no longer good. We want to restore to the new location. If you have used the set new name, you then must also use the switch. The switch command must come before the recover command. What this does is it will update the control files and it will tell the database where the new file resides. So set new name tells the restore where to place the file. The switch command tells the control files where that file actually is. And it tells the database where to apply the archive log files. But you know what? If you're not going to restore these files to a new location, there's really only 2 commands you have to know: restore and recover. Restore is going to physically rebuild the command or rebuild the file, and recover is going to apply the archive log files to it. 9 times out of 10, you're going to be restoring to the exact same location. So all you really need to do is issue the restore and the recover command. Keep in mind, anything that you're going to be restoring must have been taken offline first. So if it's a data file, you first have to tell the Oracle database to take that data file offline and then restore and recover it. Once it's been fully recovered, you can then bring it back online. Again, how you can recover your database is going to be dependent upon what mode it's operating in. If the database is operating in archive log mode, we can do full complete recovery while the database is open or closed. It does not matter. However, keep in mind that table spaces, because a table space is a logical structure, it can only be recovered while the database is up and running. So here are your actual commands to restore a particular data file. It's pretty straightforward. You're going to create this little run block, and this is what I was talking about earlier. RMAN will natively support startup and shutdown commands, but a SQL command has to be preferenced with the keyword SQL, and the actual command has to be enclosed in single quotes. So here we're creating this little run block, open curly bracket. We give it the keyword SQL, which means, hey, RMAN, we're about to run a SQL statement. We have a quotation mark, alter data file 5 offline, end quotation mark, semicolon. So what's going to happen is we're going to take this data file offline. Now you'll notice that I'm taking the data file 5 offline, not a fully qualified file. Data files can be taken offline or be modified by name or by reference. The way I got data file 5 is I queried the data dictionary table dba_data_files. That told me the specific data file that was corrupted was file number 5. I would prefer to take them off by file number rather than fully qualified name, because it's just a whole heck of a lot more typing. So data file 5 might point to U01, or data, ORCL, Tablespace, etc., 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 which is a lot of typing. So what we're doing here is we're just taking data file 5 offline. So whatever data file that is, we restore data file 5, and that's physically going to restore that file back to the operating system. We are going to recover data file 5, means we're going to apply all of the archive log files to current, and then we are going to bring that data file back online. Assuming that the database is in archive log mode, which we've already made that assumption, all of this can be done while the database is up and running, as long as it is a non-critical data file. When we talk about critical data files, these would be the system data files. So if system was unavailable or undo was unavailable, we can still fully recover the database, but it has to be in a mounted state. So anything other than system or undo can be fully recovered while the database is up and running. Now, if your database is running in no archive log mode, we don't have a lot of options. You shut the database down, you bring it up in mount mode, and then you say restore, recover the database, and then that's it. It will automatically restore the database. It will recreate your redo log files, and then you can start the database up and running. And actually, what you'd have to do in this case is open the database in reset log mode. If you're in no archive log mode, you can only recover your database to the last full code backup, and there's a very good, strong possibility that you will lose data. With user managed, the rules are going to be the same within user managed. We can completely recover the database in archive log mode. We can only incompletely recover the database in no archive log mode. However, within user managed, we're going to be using OS commands, we're going to be using SQL commands, as opposed to server managed or RMAN, where we're using RMAN commands. So we're going to take this data file offline. We're going to perform an OS restore. We can restore either to the current location or a new location. And then we're going to issue the recover command. Again, if you're going to do this for the entire database, the database in and of itself has to be done in mount mode. Data files can be done while the database is hot or cold, and table spaces, the same rules apply. A table space can only be done while the database is up and running, because a table space is a logical structure. So here would be the actual command. Here I'm saying alter database data file, and now I'm fully qualifying it. I could have said alter database data file 5 offline, but this is just the example of taking the fully qualified data file offline. You'll notice that I'm doing this through SQL commands, not through RMAN commands. I will perform an OS restore, so copy that file from its backup location to this location, and then I will issue the SQL command, recover data file, and again, I'm fully qualifying that data file. And then the last thing I do is I bring that data file online. So keep in mind, anytime you're going to recover anything, that must be taken offline first. So obviously if it's a database, the database has to be started up in a mount mode. That's effectively taking it offline. But if it's a data file or a table space, first take it offline, then you can perform your recovery operations. Now, if I want to restore this to a new location, again, I take that data file offline. I perform it to, or I copy this to the new location, and then I issue this command, alter database, rename file. So when I say alter database, rename file, source to target, so now I'm moving it from U01 to U02. What this does, it doesn't actually rename anything or it doesn't copy anything, it just updates the control file and it says, hey control file, the file that we used to have under U01 is now under U02. Okay? This does the exact same thing as the switch command within RMAN. So if we want to restore to a new location, take the data file offline, perform an OS copy to the new location, issue this command alter database rename file, source to target, that updates the control file, and then recover the data file, and then bring the data file back online. If we lose a table space, we can do the exact same thing at the table space level, except for, keep in mind, we can only do this while the database is up and running, because a table space is a logical structure. The database must be in archive log mode as well. Perform an OS copy, and then we can issue this command, restore table space. You notice here that I said restore automatic. If you just say restore table space, Oracle is going to come back and it's going to prompt you for what archive log files that you want to restore. And the options will be auto, cancel, or a new location. The restore automatic will just have Oracle not prompt you for archive log files. So it will automatically restore the table space or fully restore the table space without prompting you for the next archive log file. And then you bring the table space back online. You would really only do this one is if you've lost all the data files to the table space or you've lost a significant number of the data files to the table space. Now, if it is a critical data file would be the member of system or undo. You have to take it offline. Well, typically you don't have to do this because it's pretty much already offline. You would do some form of shutdown abort if the database is not already down. I highly recommend that you still issue a shutdown abort because if the system data file goes away, the database is kind of in a weird state. So the best practice is to come in and do a shutdown abort so you know it's kind of clean. Perform an OS restore, do a startup mount, and then recover the database. This would only apply to system or undo. Any other table space you can do while the database is up and running. If you lose a temporary file, you can easily just recreate the temporary file. Nothing has to be recovered. And then you do an alter database open. Now keep in mind, the loss of a critical data file, you can still perform a complete recovery, you just have to do it cold. So we have complete recovery, which enables us to completely recover our system to the last committed transaction. Within RMAN, we have an incomplete recovery. An incomplete recovery means that something has occurred that we have to roll the database back. There's a couple of different ways that you can perform an incomplete recovery. One is through traditional RMAN, restore, and archive logs. The other one is through flashback technology. If your database is up and running in flashback mode, we can just rewind the database back to that period of time as long as we're within a retention period. By placing the database in flashback mode, you also identify a retention target, which is typically set to like 1 day. So as long as your failure has occurred within 1 day, you can easily rewind the database. However, if your database is not in flashback mode, we can use RMAN incomplete recovery, and we can specify to incompletely recover the database until a specific time, until a specific sequence number, or a specific SCN number. Keep in mind, several rules apply with an incomplete recovery. Number 1, an incomplete recovery can only be performed while the database is in a mounted state. Number 2, incomplete recovery means the database must be open in reset log mode. So I cannot incompletely recover a table space. The entire database has to be incompletely recovered. So I'm going to mount the database, restore all data files. You do not restore control files, you just restore all data files. You issue the recover command with either the until time, until sequence, or until SCN option, and then you say alter database open, reset logs. After that is successful, you will then perform a full, cold, whole database backup. That gives you a good baseline backup. So it's going to look just like this. We're opening up a little run block. We can allocate our channels, or we can just let that be the default. We would say set until time. We would give it a hard-coded time, restore the database, recover the database, and then we'll say alter database open, reset logs. And this will completely recover the database until that specific time. Or if you're going to do until a specific sequence, you could say set until sequence. The thread here is if you're in a racked environment, it's going to identify what sequence number on what node. Here we're just saying alter database mount, restore recover, alter database open. Keep in mind that the set until sequence 120 only brings you up to 120. It does not bring you through 120. So you're only recovering actually up through logs 119. Incomplete recovery is required under about 4 or 5 scenarios. Number 1, you have lost all control files. Number 2, you have lost all members of the current online redo log group. You wish to restore to a specific point in time in the past, or you have lost a needed archive log file. No matter what happens in any one of these 4 scenarios, an incomplete recovery is required. The database must be open in reset logs. Not all of these necessarily mean you're going to have data loss, but it means you're performing what Oracle refers to as an incomplete recovery. The loss of all control files does not necessarily mean you will lose data, and the loss of all members of the current group does not necessarily mean you're going to lose data either. I mean, it's highly possible you will, but not necessarily. But 3 and 4, if you wish to restore to a specific point in time in the past, or you've lost a needed archive log, then yes, you will lose data. So if you have lost all your control files, you will connect to RMAN. You will issue a startup no mount. You will issue the command restore control file from auto backup. Assuming that you have configured your system to automatically back up a control file, this will be fine. Once you restore the control files from auto backup, you then will issue the alter database mount command, restore the database, recover the database, and open the database in reset log mode. Keep in mind, obviously, this has to be done cold. We can do this if it's within user managed as well. But the RMAN command, those are the commands. Startup no mount, restore control file from auto backup, alter database mount, restore, recover the database, alter database open, reset logs. If you're doing this with user managed, you would say alter database backup control file to file name, and then you give it the SQL command, recover database using backup control file. We have incomplete recovery within user managed, which basically is the same thing as within RMAN. Incomplete recovery is incomplete recovery. It doesn't matter how you choose to recover from it, whether it's user managed or RMAN, the rules are the same. If you lose all control files, a needed archive log file, all redo log files are lost, some sort of user error, you wish to go back to a specific point in time in the past. So the rules for incomplete recovery are the same rules regardless if you're using user managed or Oracle managed. Within user managed, there are 3 types of incomplete recovery available. We have a time-based recovery, which is the same thing as RMAN. We have a cancel-based recovery, which the user is specifically going to cancel out of it. And we have a change-based recovery, which is a change number. So again, the reasons that we need to perform an incomplete recovery, one of which is if you lose all control files. And again, this should really never happen. You should have enough control files out there that if you lose them all, that you've really had a catastrophic failure. Best practices is to place at least 2 to 3 control files on completely separate disk devices. So for a user-managed incomplete recovery, you're going to shut down the database. You will restore all data files. Do not restore the control file, redo log file, password file, or parameter file. We also tell you to back up the database because if you fail on this incomplete recovery, you can always restore back to it and start it all over again. Mount the database, recover the database to the point in time before the failure, and then alter database open, reset logs. And then we'll want you to perform a full closed database backup. So here, we're just going to say something like recover database until cancel, recover database until time, or recover the database using a backup control file. If the database is closed, we want you to attempt to open the database, find the current log sequence number, and again, recover the database until cancel. You will have to drop and recreate the log files if necessary, and then finally open the database in reset log mode. Main thing to always remember, after you perform an incomplete recovery, it's very, very important that you perform a full cold database backup. It doesn't have to be cold, but you need to perform a full database backup after it's been opened in reset log. In Oracle 12c, we have what's called the DRA, which is the Data Recovery Advisor. This is available within Cloud Control, as in within RMAN. You will go through 4 steps. It will do a list failure, advise failure, repair failure, and then change failure. The list failure tells you what data file is missing. The advise failure is going to give you advice and create a little RMAN script. The repair failure can invoke that script, and if you issue the repair failure, it will automatically change the failure to close. You have to issue the advise failure before you can do a repair failure. So here what we've done. We've gone to the Performance tab, and we've gone into the Advisor Central. On the far right-hand side, we see Data Recovery Advisor. And then it's going to come back, and it will list any sort of failures that we have. Here, it tells us that we didn't do this as sysdba. So keep in mind, when you're logged in and you want to do the DRA, it has to be done under a sysdba account. So please go ahead and download the quiz. Under the Courses page, under the Course Materials tab, take the quiz, or take the interactive online quiz. Thank you for attending.